Let's take a closer look at this now with Robert Gutsche. He's an Associate Professor of Sociology at Lancaster University in the UK. Really good to have you back with us, Professor. Firstly, as we heard there, we've heard some seemingly damning evidence during these so-called Capitol riot hearings happening in Washington, D.C. One of his former closest advisors, Steve Bannon, has just announced that he's agreed to cooperate with these hearings as well. Do you think any of the evidence and testimony that we've heard so far will impact Donald Trump's popularity?
Well, I think you have to kind of go back to some of the initial promises Donald Trump made when he started to run for the presidency, and that was to overturn Roe v. Wade. The issues of abortion continue to be massive among his supporters and a big part of his base and of the Republican camp. So being able to stack into the Supreme Court the way that he did, and to have that court then come back just really recently and overturn that Roe v. Wade aspect is something that's going to be a big push, not just for these midterm elections, but for the base to come back and say, well, Donald Trump got this done for us. Either Donald Trump needs to go back and run, or Trumpism, his ideas need to be at the center of the next candidate.
That's right. So do you think then it's a matter of his supporters perhaps weighing up the pros and cons and deciding perhaps while Donald Trump may be questionable in some aspects of his character and his actions, on the whole, he fulfills the Republican mandate?
Well, yeah, I think that that's really at the core of how a lot of the people who are going to the polls to vote for him are thinking. But there are also other things, right? He's been blocked out of a lot of the social media that he used to amplify his messages, right? So he might be on his own platforms or on other sort of conservative social media platforms, but he's lost access to the major area where he made a lot of news. We also have to think about how journalists are going to cover Donald Trump. I mean, we saw at the very end of his time in office, journalists, even Fox News, starting to cut him off in the middle of a speech, something never would have done before. So how will journalists look at this? Whether people trust journalists in the United States or have issues from an ideological position, which is certainly an issue, how is he going to fare in free press and in the social media sphere? So all of these things kind of come back together, in addition to how people are looking at Joe Biden as a president.
Yes, we know that the congressional committee that's currently looking into the Capitol Hill riot can't themselves charge Donald Trump with a criminal offense, but they can recommend a criminal charge to the Department of Justice. Do you think it'll go down that road, that perhaps Donald Trump may be charged with something by the Justice Department?
I think it's really unlikely. I'm not a legal expert here, but if we look at the history of how courts have been asked, even with some charges, to get some movement against him and some of his allies, the courts have been very slow, and certainly the prosecutors have been very slow to move in that direction for a long time. Not just about his time in politics, but when he was also in business and trying to get access to some of his tax information and his business dealings. It really has been a very strange sort of process where this person seems to be in a bubble where we just can't seem to poke through. There are certainly presidential powers that prohibit some sort of criminal criminal acts to be warranted in some sort of prosecution here. But the president also isn't bulletproof, right? And so, but I do think it's going to be unlikely. It's going to also be kind of how these charges, whether they come or don't, or recommendations, how that gets played out in the press, and again on social media for people while he's being a part of this midterm election, endorsing people. That's going to be a part of that conversation.
Okay, Robert Gutsche, we will have to leave it there, but really appreciate your analysis. Thanks for joining us.